let's take a look at the very first one, which is the elves. So this will be in alphabetical order, right? So this is not by order or favoritism or anything, right? So okay, looking at the elves. The elves is it's our kind of like extreme take on the elves traditionally found in media. It's a bit more similar to the Fae or like the Celtic like natural spirits. I think you might find them in like Welsh legends as well. So that's one of those things, right? So the elves in Chorinthia, they're generally found around different locuses of natural power, right? So in the land of Chorinthia, there's a lot of different elements that roam the land, and these elementally charged lands, right, spawn, well, monsters lah. Basically, they're known as titans, and they're like colossal monsters, and they're elementals of pure magic, right? And so in these areas where there's like a large focus or a locus of different elemental powers, right, elves will generally center around them, and they will take on this
Energy.
this energy into their being, right? And they start to morph and change based on this element. So you can kind of think of them as like sponges, and wherever they're near, they will take on these features. And these features are not instant. They take many, many years throughout their lives to grow into these things, right? So the description we have here is that they're from the Verdant Walls of Naraka, which is the Verdant Elf on the right, is the forest guy, and then the auroral waves of the Gale Alves. So we don't have the water elves here. We'll go into that later. And so elves are inexorably drawn to loci of potent terrestrial magics. So terrestrial magics here, we're talking about magics that are from the planet, right? There's a little bit of a distinction between terrestrial and celestial magics, but we won't really cover too much of that here.
I mean, we might talk about it in like
In the skills,
mastery.
in the skill itself, because we do use the term terrestrial magic quite a bit. All right, and so here are some of the traits that you might have as an elf. So these are they're overly generalized, right? But on average, an elf will live up to 140 years. They take on the features of their environment, but they're not born that way. So when they're born, they may look pretty similar to a normal human being with maybe slightly longer years. And as they grow old while they are near these loci of power, they take on these features. So an adventuring elf may look a lot more human, while an elf who stays in the jungle his entire life will look like what you see on the right now, right? And elves mature at a much younger age because they are grown is not the right word. They're raised in a community where there's a lot of a focus on learning how to commune with nature and to take on these like shamanistic tribe roles, right? So culturally, they live in isolated little tribes and villages near these loci of power, and they develop like a very strong communal bond. So they are fiercely tribal, like almost dangerously so, you could say. Like if a foreigner were to come into their village, they may attack them on the side, right? But they do respect beings who are strong and have a great understanding of terrestrial magics here. It should be terrestrial instead of rather normal magics, right? So elves are the usual height, so 5 to 6 feet, which is like 1.5 meters to about 1.8, 1.9, right? And they typically have very lean builds because they are always in the wild, they're always moving about. They don't over industrialize, right? There might still be like towns and villages and stuff, but then generally you're not gonna find like a human city like
these towns are more like the like at their outskirts, stuff like that. Yeah,
like you think of them as like let's just say there's like a big jungle, right? Like a jungle that covers like the Amazon rainforest kind of thing, right? And then you have towns and villages that are along the outskirts and maybe some in the heart, but there's no like urban city. So you're not going to find elves in like an urbanized area within Chorinthia normally, right? Unless they are part of another city. So that means that this is no longer an elven city, right? So what 5 to 6 feet represents is that this is a medium creature, right? So if you're familiar with your typical TTRPG stuff, medium creature takes up 1 square, 5 feet by 5 feet, and yeah, all of the typical medium creature stuff, right? Base movement speed of 30 feet. So what that means is a single move action moves you 30 feet, right? In AoA, our movement system is a little bit more extreme compared to your traditional RPGs because we use a stamina point system, right? So every turn you have 2 stamina points, and then at level 3 onwards you have 3 stamina points. And a move action is 1 stamina point. You can choose to move with all 3 of your stamina points, or 2 of your stamina points, or you can choose to attack or use other skills with them. But what this potentially means is that at level 3 onwards you can run like 90 feet in a turn, yeah. If you don't do anything else, right? It's like a dash. Everybody gets a dash action on crack, right? But it makes actions and combat a lot faster and a lot more impactful. Mobility and movement is a lot more impactful, right? And so going on, we have languages. So you'll find the trend here is that every race can speak common because Chorinthia as a world already has the common language is technically the human language, right? And most of the races have learned to trade with each other, and they have taken on the common tongue, right? So you can speak, read, and write common. And Elvish has a general kind of dialect, and then there's an Elven dialect itself, right? So your Elven dialect could be something that is like, oh, because I'm from the forest, I'm from the mountains, I'm from the coast, right? And I'll have a dialect for that tribe, right? So they come with 3 languages, right? I won't go too much as to exactly how Elvish sounds, but you can imagine it's kind of like a sing-song kind of language, and commonly within the world, music and songs, things that are sang by minstrels are written in Elvish, right? It's not a rare language per se. Like most of the languages in AoE are not rare; they are just different, right? And so let's go on to the next part, which is the sub races, right? So sub races in AoE, similar to your races, they are mostly they only affect your traits. They don't actually mechanically affect your skills or your stats, right? However, I mean, if for example, like the Verdant Alves right here, right, he has plant-like features. These things could affect your game in a roleplay sense. For example, maybe he has like a branch growing out of his hair. He may pick up a branch and use it, or maybe he has fruits growing up for himself, and he may eat the fruits, right? So these are things that we are leaving it more open-ended, and there's a general design philosophy for all of our races and sub-races. So you might find that they are more they don't have as much of a direct impact in your gameplay, and more so in a roleplay sense rather than a combat mechanical sense, right? However, we do design our racial skills with a hint of like the sub races in mind. So you might see that in the later skills, right? So Elven sub races are divided into the places they're from, right? So you have Gale Alves, Verdant Alves, right? So because they're from the mountains, they're from the forest, then you have things like the Tide Elves, which are from the coast, the Plain Elves, which are from, plains, and like Sun Elves near volcanic areas and stuff like that, right? And so the 2 most common ones, and this will be the same trend throughout all of the basic set and the races we're covering today, these are the 2 races that are the most common in the area of the basic set, right? So the basic set takes place in the Thundersteps in Elzalon, and these are the races that are the most commonly viewable there, right? So the first one we'll go through are the Gale Elves, right? So the Gale Elves is the lady on the left, right? Hail from a mountainous region, so places where there's a lot of like wind. You can think of like the Grand Canyon where winds run through the place and it's like wearing off some of the rocks. They have a natural affinity towards air magic. So these are elves that are found in places where there is a focus of air magics in the area, in the land, and you can think of them like Tibetan monks in like our human culture, right? And they live sort of like ascetic lives and are generally introspective, a little bit aloof, right? Of course, these are generalizations. You can always play an elf which is like outrageous or different and whatnot, but these are like culturally, this is what it's like. And even though they're aloof, they're kind of there's like it's kind of like a raging storm going inside of them. So you might get this kind of like blank stare, and then next moment great ferocity, right? So what are the physical features, and these are physical features, they are traits that you will take on when you pick a Gale Elf, and are included inside your appearance and your physical traits, right? Is that their ears are a little shorter compared to the other elves. Their skin is pale, it leans almost towards like a gray or purple, and then they possess like a stone-like, I mean literally stone-like texture to their skin, right? Some with like pores similar to the rocks that have been worn on by wind. The hair tends towards like grays, purples, light colors, and it's almost like a wind or cloud-like structure. So like their hair may turn into wisps of air at the end, right? Mechanically, no effect, but we'll get to that, right? So moving on to the next thing, which is the Verdant Alves, the guys on the right. So you're from a forested area. Your natural affinities towards nature and life magic. They are typically like very similar to wood elves in Dungeons and Dragons. They are reclusive, they're reserved, or similar to the elves of okay, they're not quite similar to the elves of Lord of the Rings.
No,
It's
mostly wood
more
elves,
more like the wood elves.
It's mostly wood elf.
So there's a kind of like a air of reverence to them. They're a little bit mystical, like you can think of them like fate, like the traditional fae spirits, you know? Yeah, like shamanistic, right? So in within the basic set, there's a land to the northwest of the map. So the basic set comes along with a map of the region of Elzalon, and to the northwest there's a large jungle. So literally like the Amazon rainforest, right? Known as Naraka, and that is like the largest concentration of Verdant Elves out there, right? And it's a jungle that's full of life and death, right? And so that's where most of them are. And so the physical traits that they have is like they have super long pointed ears and skin that can be like brown or green, almost like plant-like. Some of them, like it could be bark, it could be like the stem of a plant, it could even be skin-like normally, like just normal skin, right? And the hair is typically of a natural color, usually like green and brown, and it can even grow up to become literal plants. And same with like vines and leaves, branches coming off their head, and their eyes are they can take on the features of like the beasts of the forest. So you can have like cat eyes, ember eyes, and all that kind of stuff, right? But as I mentioned before, this is something that happens only after an elf has stayed in that place for a long period of time, right? It is not something that they just like, oh, they're born, they're like that. No. They're born, they're more similar to a normal elf, and then like a normal human person with pointy ears, and then they start to pick on these features as they grow within these places, right? And so now we'll move on to what are the mechanical implications of actually picking a race and sub-races and stuff like that, right? So there's not much words here, but if you have seen our masteries, you'll be very familiar with what you're seeing right here, right? So
like just now I mentioned earlier, so similar to what I said earlier, which is all the skills are mostly utility based. I'll have these two racial skills. So one of them is tuned to nature and the other is nature's embrace. The one that we're showing today is attuned to nature. And like what you mentioned, we have seen this like table before, and as you can tell, so a bit of refresher here is that these two racial skills can be picked at character creation, which is level 1. Yeah. Because there's no previous requirement or stuff like that. Yeah.
Yep.
So going to the skills itself, right? The tag here is elf. So it's the race.
Yes.
There's no other way.
Yeah.
So the skill type is racial. This is new. It's new compared to masteries. So this is just a classification here.
Yeah. So just to clarify, right, like all skills, pretty much, all skills within AoA are considered masteries. So as long as you require something, it's kind of like a classification that we've given them, right? So racial skills are also a form of mastery. They're racial mastery, and which also means that in the future, we do plan to release skills that require ranks in your race. So you can think about like being the most elven elf, you know, something like that. Yeah. So there's some clarification on the mastery portion of this.
So this is our first passive skill. Yes, this is our first passive skill that we have shown.
Fully passive.
Correct. Yeah. So that's why you see for the SP cost is dashed out. Because it's always activated in that sense.
There's no stamina point cost here. Right.
Then for that is require no mastery beforehand, and the only requirement here is being an elf. Right. So the learning here is a bit different is RP, it's racial point cost.
Yep.
It's not mastery point cost.
Yep.
So this point will increase in the
By level.
Yes, it will increase in by level, but not within the first 5.
Yes.
Not within basic set. Yeah. So in the future, when we release like maybe 1 to 10 adventure or stuff like that, that's when you see this being used more lah. Yeah. So the actual effect of this skill, attuned to nature, is actually you gain an advantage on any challenge related to terrestrial magic. So just now we mentioned terrestrial magic. So what is it actually? So terrestrial magic is actually just your flame, frost, storm, nature, and necros.
Yep.
Okay. And you have not have you went through any of this?
We have went through flame.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
Only flame.
only flame.
Yep.
Correct. So in the basic set, you might not even see some of these skills. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you not even see some of the skills.
You will not see.
you'll not see
any nature skills.
Nature skill. Yeah. Then storm is not from you anyway. So
I mean, there will be storm challenges.
There will be storm skills, but not on the player side.
Yes.
You can't learn storm.
This is any challenge.
Yeah, it is any challenge. Yeah, correct.
Right. So challenges are your typical skill check rolls in TTRPGs where, like, I need to jump across a ravine. Okay, let's make a challenge roll here. So challenge rolls are different from blast rolls in the sense that you get to choose how you want to approach this. And we encourage you to choose how you approach this to determine what you use to roll. So as an elf, if something is like this challenge has some inkling of a relation to terrestrial magics, right? This is where this comes into play, right? So you'll find that these passives are a little bit more open-ended, right? They're not so
straight to the point.
Yeah, they're not so strict.
Rules are written.
Yeah, some of them are.
Yeah.
Some racial utilities are just straight like, you'll see later.
Yeah.
But some of them are also more open-ended, so you get to use them in a more role-playing sense, right?
So a bit add on here is also, right, because I think we have mentioned sub-races, and for both sub-races, right, you could take either of these skills.
Yeah.
It's not like tied to either the Gale or the Verdant Alves here. Maybe in the future we will have one that is like sub-race dependent, like it requires you to be a certain type of sub-race, but for the basic set currently, all the 2 skills for all 5 classes, all 5 races are not tied to the sub-race and is tied to the main race instead.
Yep. So for now, all races can use either of their racial skills available within the basic set, right? So okay, let's look at attuned to nature. So the effect itself, right? What it means is that whenever there's a challenge roll, you gain an advantage. So just to reiterate, in case you're unfamiliar with what an advantage is, right? So Aeons of Adventure is a 2d6 resolution game, right? So you roll 2d6, you add a modifier, and then you add the 2d6 together, and then the sum you use to beat a target number, right? What an advantage means is that you roll an additional d6 and you take the 2 highest dice, right? So you can imagine just as like every challenge roll regarding magic, right? You just have an advantage all the time, right? Which means you always roll 3d6 and take the 2 highest. So naturally, all elves are a little bit better at determining anything related to terrestrial magics, right? And when we talk about terrestrial magics here, we're talking about magics that are abundant in nature, right? Or rather, okay, from nature, from the planet, right? So we talk about anything related to fire magic, frost magic, which includes water, right? Storm magic, which also includes air, right? Nature, which is like all the plants and stuff, and then necros, which is necromancy, right? So death and also kind of life, right? Goes both ways. Yeah. So that is the elves. In the actual rulebook itself, there's a lot more information as to the races, the details of the races, like their lore and their backgrounds, the communities and stuff like that. But if we go through that, this stream will be 3 hours, right? So we will kind of like just run through a high level preview of what every single race will be. Okay, so if there is anything else you want to add to elves?
Nothing much, huh? Actually, elf is pretty standard in that sense. I think it's one of the more basic race.
Yeah, I would say so. Like the elves for AoA are just an extreme form of elves, right?
Yeah, they are also very like basic in that there's not much unique.
The
No,
concepts
not
are
unique,
not
but
particularly different.
yeah,
but
it's if you mention an elf, you think of this. Yeah, but a bit more like what you mentioned, which is
Yeah.
like it's a bit more extreme.
Yep.
But at its root and its base, it's still the same.
Yep, they're still kind of nature spirits, they're
Mm.
kind of like wild
Long
spirits.
years.
Yeah, long years. It's just that we take on like the element of the
Yeah.
location, right?
Mm.
So that's the main difference with elves.